Tom.
Maybe it's 6 o'clock. I call this special meeting of the Eaton County School Board to order at this time.
Mr. Alpine, Ms. Flanagan.
Here.
Dr. Ball.
Here.
Ms. Maddox.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Dr. Stanbaugh.
Here.
And Mr. Zanger.
Here.
You entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Our primary agenda issue is adjustments to the FY 2015 school budget. Tom, you have some reports and recommendations for that.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you all being here this evening because I know that we had to pull this together on very short notice. Obviously, we had the meeting Monday evening with the Board of Supervisors where some of you were present, and you certainly asked for the additional funding or for our budget request to be funded. Of course, there were no changes made. So that left the us with $75,000 above the level funding, which is short of the, we asked for about $476,000. So as a result, in my mind, I thought that we would wait until after the official Board of Supervisors approval next week. But Mr. Hall informed me that in order for them to do that, they need to have our budget balanced as a part of that approval. And he did ask the members of the Board of Supervisors to ask for those adjustments Monday evening, and there were none. So we have to go based on where we are. So as a result, we need to balance. So that's our purpose for tonight. And as a part of that process, I'm going forward with my recommendation. Of course, board members would certainly weigh in on where you are with those recommendations. Just as a reminder, in red, we have the budget shortfall that we have no choice to address. It's listed here in red. I don't know what that was, but $151,616 listed there. We also have the additional cost for the SROs that we've talked about. That includes their 1% and so forth. They're doing that 1% VRS each year. We did it all at one time. Also, VRS Group Light listed here. No choice on those. We had several other items here in black that we requested as a part of our budget. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of those because we spent a lot of time talking about each of these items that were included. So, with our budget shortfall of $187,930, we obviously needed to address that. So certainly I'm recommending that we do address that as we need to. The only other couple of items that I felt strongly about that need to be included in the budget are the 3 health office assistants, which I'll talk to you a little bit more about, as well as the budget finance position. And we've talked about a full position, which we obviously can't afford to do, so I'm recommending a half a position to, again, support budget and finance with all the new tasks that we're facing in that regard. It's going to be important, plus the fact that we're starting to do auditing, that, as I've shared with the board, is an important part of that process as well. So with my recommendation, that really puts us in a position here where we have to make all of these things come together in balance, and as a result, the items that were in our original budget proposal would need to come off. Some items would need to come off. What they are, we'll have to decide this evening, but my recommendation is that we remove half of that budget position, those contract adjustments, which we desperately need in curriculum and instruction, the general maintenance position, the stipends that were listed there for coaches, the summer interns, but we have to go deeper. We have to make additional cuts, which are going to be painful. The purchase services, the 10% cut, and many times when you do cuts like this, you do about a 2% or 3%. not a 10%. So that's significant. The reducing capital outlay by 10%. We also, which we haven't done in the past, we are trying to anticipate a little bit better savings through attrition. When you have folks that retire and then you hire someone to take their place with less years of experience, there's some savings there. That's a very dangerous road to follow, because you don't want to hire somebody just because they have less years of experience. You want to hire the best. But after we've looked over the last several years, we feel confident that we can have some attrition savings in that amount. So with this proposal, you'll see that obviously this will change what we've included in our budget recommendation. You'll see the decreases that are included there throughout. The challenge that we really faced was, all of these things are important. And what it came down for me was safety of our students. We've had some, I'll be honest with you, some scary student situations this year, where we've had staff members who've had to, and Sherry Vestal's here just in case we have questions that we need to answer related to that, but we've had students that have had severe allergic reactions. We've had to have staff take quick action in order to ensure the safety of our students. And as you know, if we don't have somebody in the building to help do that, then we end up having a part-time secretary that's filling that role. And we have increase in health issues and medications. So while I feel that all of these things are important, I had to give you the recommendation with my feelings about student safety. So that's where that's coming from. And certainly if board members want to present a different recommendation, that's why we're meeting today, to have that conversation. But that's where we are at this time with my recommendation, and I would certainly welcome any feedback. But ultimately, we have to balance our budget, and we have to get to that point this evening, because we need to make changes. As it stands now, staff is going to be working over the Easter holiday to get this ready for the Board of Supervisors. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to open it up.
Okay, we open the floor up for discussion of Cotton and his staff's recommendations for the methodology, I guess, that we saw the $295,000 shortfall. Well, actually, $400,000 shortfall. So we'll open the floor now for discussion on reaction to his recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, this is my third budget on the school board. I've been pushing to restore the cuts in the coaching stipends for 3 years. This is the third year. I've been very successful, but I'm not a quitter. To make a long story short, I used to coach, and so that's why it's near to my heart. I mean, it's not just athletics, it's academics, it's band directors, ROTC, etc. I think they went 12 years with no pay increase. I think it was more than that, but for the sake of argument, I think it was 12 years. And then in 2009, the school board gave them about a 10% increase. And then the next year was a devastating budget year, and the board cut them about 15%. So to make a long story short, they're making less money now than they were 16 years ago. And we're having trouble getting coaches. Serious problem. And I'm willing to compromise. I mean, 30,000 would restore half the cut and improve morale. And there's several ways that I think we can achieve this goal. So that's how I feel we'll start off the discussion with.
I can't remember the exact sequence of this whole thing. I remember when I was still a high school principal that coaches were all being paid a percentage of their salary at that time.
noticed Mr. Ocker had a recommendation that one of these health office assistants split between two schools.
I went back, I believe, at that time, moved to a set fee for specific coaches. A lot of work went into that, so that each coach and each activity person was a set salary. It was no longer tied directly to their experience or to their salary. And we kept that for a period of time. I guess I wasn't aware that there was a raise given there sometime in between that. I thought we were still with the set fee. Then when we had the real bad budget year, we cut those back. I think we also did we not during that same time eliminate instructors to department heads and some other things too to make up that. But I think Mr. Zer's correct in that it did result in a larger cut than at least I was aware of at the time. And I take blame for that. I should have looked at you a bit closer. As far as I know, somebody in finance maybe can refresh my memory here. We did cut that a lot of money there in order to balance the budget. And then at the end of the year, I believe we have come up with a surplus. Is that the year that the Board of Supervisors didn't let us carry any of that surplus forward? You want to recall that?
They've given us for the past few years, some of our surplus, not necessarily all of it.
I think we actually carried forward enough surplus that would never not matter to anybody, which we didn't get in the long run. And I realized that we had to balance the budget that year. I don't know that we've ever cut salary to anybody before. Maybe we have, but if you go back through it, I didn't recall it. But we actually took some salary to cut them back. And I do agree that I think we need to make an effort to begin to restore some of those people. You know, if we do it over a 2-year or 3-year period or however, I'd like to see some effort made to restore it. Never felt good about the fact that we cut salary during that period of time. And I don't know the best way to do that. I would not presume to go through this and say take it to England or somewhere else. I think that Dr. Cotton and his staff were best prepared to do that, rather than us telling them where to do it. But I'd like to encourage them to come up with a little bit of that so that we can at least say, ladies and gentlemen, who are doing these extra services, we realize that imposed on them several years ago to help balance the budget. We want to try to at least make an effort to restore it.
What's been our budget surplus for the past few years? I know those numbers are probably out there, and I apologize for not doing my homework better. But does somebody have a rough estimate of what our budget surplus has been the past 4 or 5 years each year?
This past year, it was, around 770,000. And what I want to point out about that is that we purposely tried to have at least 500,000 surplus because we were planning to do a one-time bonus. That was prior to the decision to do the 2% raise. The 2 years prior to that, we've had a surplus of significant amount of money, up to 1.9 million in surplus.
Have we looked at where that surplus from a line item or category stat, where that is that consistently coming from particular areas of the budget year after year?
Yeah, we've done that analysis. A large portion of that amount, which as nice as it was to have a 1.9 million to use for capital improvement projects, a lot of it was unexpected because many of our capital improvement projects came in under budget. We also got some E-rate funding that we weren't anticipating that contributed to that as well. But we do monitor all of our areas to see where the savings can be found. I want to remind you that we've taken a significant cut this year due to enrollment. And since our enrollment was well below what we anticipated, what was it? This loss in $500-some thousand dollars, over $500,000 that we had to find in this year's budget because of our enrollment numbers. So we're not going to have a large carry forward at the end of this year. Matter of fact, right now we're in the process of determining what we're going to have at the end of this year because of that significant cut. So a part of budgeting, you need to monitor those things. We've had some interesting things happen, like I said, over the years, but we're not anticipating a large carry forward.
I guess what I'm getting at is large is relative, and the line item amount for the restoring the coaching and academic coaching stipend is $60,000, which is very small in comparison to the amount of carry forward or surplus we've had over the last few years. And it's also the one input the board gave specifically for the budget. And I think that's important. I've debated how much of an issue to make of that, but it is the one thing that the board voted unanimously that we would like to see restored. And it's a small amount, comparatively speaking. So I don't know. I guess that's the point I wanted to make. I'm not, obviously we have some significant constraints forced upon us both by the VRS, the things that we have to fund, and then by the Board of Supervisors not funding fully our budget request. But at the same time, I kind of philosophically feel that this $60,000, much like partners on the board here, I think this is something we feel pretty committed to.
Well, I feel like we need to make an effort to at least send the word, hey, cutting people, and obviously these are not all the same people. Some of them may be different things than the ones that absorb them. But I would like for them to know that we recognize the fact that we did that. All of this group was not home during that time. But I would like to send a message. We recognize that we cut their salaries. In fact, we eliminated some. I think that was at the time when we eliminated any kind of supplement for departmental heads. And maybe those people don't have the same responsibilities that they were charged with at that time. But again, without being redundant, I think we need to really send a message, hey, realize that happened. Maybe if we can't do it all, I want to do part of it to finish it up next year or through.
And that's why we're having this discussion. I will tell you, I support restoring that money, but not cost of student safety. And philosophically, I could not make a recommendation to you saying that we're going to restore those stipends and not put somebody in our schools to deal with these safety issues. And I know people will say, well, we haven't had issues. It doesn't mean that we can continue to not have issues. But we need to put people in place for this. And like I said, we've had some issues recently that cause concern. So that's where I am. I could have very easily made that recommendation, but not at the cost of safety. So if the board does want to provide some money in there for those stipends, and you have the option to take away one of those health office assistants.
Why is it either? Why are we saying it's coaching or health office assistants? I don't understand that. I mean,
I would ask that too, and of course, I can't answer from this budget, but is it not possible to find $20,000 or $30,000 somewhere? I agree that we need those people in the schools. I don't quarrel with that at all.
I think the board totally supports what you're saying about student safety. But I would also argue that we're not trying to decide between health office assistants and returning to the coaching site. And again, I get back to a $700,000 carried forward this year and over $1 million the past couple of years. And I fully believe that the projection on that is going to be much, much smaller. But 20, 30, or 60,000 is, again, a small fraction of that, and I'm just suggesting that it's somewhere else in the budget. And I don't think we need to say it's health office assistants or a coaching site.
Yeah, I don't like that comparison either.
Well, we get some direction on where those folks are going to go. Because we have to find them somewhere in the budget.
Well, that's why, again, that gets back to my question about where the carry forward came from. And I realize that gets maybe a little more line item than, that's information you guys can provide to us. Where that kind of excess was.
Well, a significant part of this budget, income outgoes, either kind of mandated or flow through type money. So there are only certain areas you need to be taken. So, correct.
That's true.
Do you have an estimate of where we would be by the end of the year?
So looking at page 17, these different areas, which areas is it possible to find $20,000 or $30,000? Go ahead, Richard. You can all pay your way.
We have $50,000 in travel expenses for the school board, and I think we would probably take some there. I don't think we'd take all of them. The school board travel. So,
We can all bypass the national.
yeah,
conference.
we can do that.
Mr. Chairman, good.
But you have to remember, in that travel is not only just for the school board members, but you have the nurses and your psychologists that travel back and forth.
I
They also
understand
come at
that.
about $50,000. So it is for our actual staff members, not just the school board members.
Does that usually cover the whole?
There's times we actually have to fund additional to cover travel, especially for the ones that travel back and forth between the states.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know how constructive it's going to be to go through all the line
Yeah.
items, but if the board wants to give you direction on the amount that you want us to find, then we'll find it.
What figure did you have in mind, Mr. Chairman? 30,000, half of it? Would that be acceptable?
What I said earlier was, I would do for the third. I don't know how much difference is between 20 and 30,000.
Not much.
I'm concerned about sending a message that realize what was done, not by the superintendent,
Right.
but realize what was done. It was actually done by us, by those of us that were on the board at that time. That we realize what was done, and we want to gradually, at some point, restore it. we gave them rather half this year, then next year we will direct the staff as they prepare the budget to include that and not show it as an extra add-on that we hope to get if we get additional money.
Well, Mr. Chair, I could offer a motion that we pass the amended budget and ask that I move that we pass the revised budget recommendation and ask the superintendent and his staff to come up with $30,000 to restore part of the pay cuts for the stipends.
I'll second it.
Any additional discussion?
Will you repeat your motion, please?
The motion is to pass the revised budget with the amendment that we had $30,000. The superintendent has the discretion to add $30,000 to restore the pay cuts for the stipends, part of the pay cuts. And next year we try to do the rest.
I would not like to see that 30,000 possibly come in a way that makes it look like we're favoring coaches over safety of kids.
Well, and if you're telling me that you want to keep the health office assistants in there, what I'm hearing is that you want to keep these items here and you want me to find an additional.
Right. You said to let you know what the figure was and you'd find it. That's what you said.
So instead of, you had the reductions on one of the other slides. I don't know if whoever's working the slides can go to that page. Yeah, and so the fourth line down, instead of saying 60,740 in parentheses, we're saying, say, 30,740.
Just 30,000 even.
Yeah, you know,
Right.
just saying that we're going to try and only take half of that from the original budget.
Is everyone clear on that motion? It's been made and seconded. There's clear this motion needs signify by raising your right hand. That give you what you need? This is what we need. I realize this is a bit some more work on you people, but,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a prediction that this budget, revised budget, is based on the governor's original, Governor McDonald's original proposal. And I predict, let's hope I'm right, that the House version and the Senate version, when they finally get together and they have a conference committee, that we'll get some more money than what the governor projected. Let's hope so. So that'll make his job a whole lot easier. A little bit more money. Keep your fingers crossed.
okay, so then, following that motion is approval, are there any additional discussion on adjustments to this budget? Then I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised school board budget as it coincides with this motion we just passed.
I think that's what we did.
I think that covered it.
We did that. I thought that was just an approval of the motion. Okay, so then we'll move on to matters from the board. No matters from the board. Okay, at this time then I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session in accordance with section 2.2-3711, print A, print 1, Code of Virginia, appointments and separation of personnel.
So moved.
Those in favor of this motion, signify by raising your right hand. At this time, I'll entertain a session to return, a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor of this motion, signify by raising your right hand. So, certify closed session.
Whereas the school board of Henry County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting is conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the school board of Hannah County hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered. Dr. DeValle?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
Ms. Maddox?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Spanbaugh?
Yes.
And Mr. Zake?
Yes.
Thank you.
This time we entertain a motion regarding the supplement to the personnel report that was presented during closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the personnel report presented to us today for approval.
I second the motion.
Discussion. Those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Carries. We entertain a motion at this time now to adjourn this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand.